Hello, my name is Daniel Harrington, Chief Operating Officer at Intelligence Fusion. In today's podcast, I'll be giving a brief review of the crime and security situation that occurred in Sweden during 2019 using data recorded by our intelligence platform. Violent crime, including shootings and explosions, have been at the forefront of many news stories regarding Sweden over the last year. What I aim to do in this podcast is provide some context, detail and accuracy to the headlines and dig into the real picture within Sweden. The main trend really from 2019 that we've witnessed here at Intelligence Fusion is the continuation and the increase in violent crime. So explosions and shootings being the main incident categories that we've looked at here. So we've witnessed in the major cities such as Stockholm, Gothenburg and Malmo, criminality, organised crime involved in violent shootings and also detonations targeting both rivals but also commercial businesses and even police. So what we want to do really is kind of delve into those areas and have an investigation. So within Malmo itself, we saw a continuation of the use of explosive devices, but also a new trend of the increasing power and yield of these devices. So previously in prior years, we saw a higher use of, say, firecrackers such as Cobra 8 devices, which were used to intimidate rival crime members or gang members or local business owners. Now we've seen in recent months of the last sort of few months of 2019 an increasing use in more high yield IEDs, which are having more devastating and more powerful effects, damaging property, for example. This has really kind of caused concern to the local population as well within Malmo, coupled with an increasing amount of shootings and assassinations within the criminal world there. What we're seeing is gang conflict over drugs, over distribution sites, but also intimidating local businesses. So we've seen media reports, for example, of local business owners being threatened and intimidated to cache drugs in their property or face the wrath of criminal gangs. And this is what we're seeing, is a lot of these targeted IED attacks are being either directed at those commercial businesses or potentially other businesses which are being harboured or used by rival criminal gangs within Malmo. The increasing violence, which culminated in November, we saw the death of a teenager as well as a female doctor in separate shootings, has caused a public outcry. And from this outcry, the police now have reacted with Operation Rimfrost, which is designed to really reinforce Malmo with national police resources, attempt to deny freedom of movement to criminal gangs within Malmo and the wider region of Skåne, and also reassert police authority and increase public safety in that area. So what we're really kind of seeing now is national police being utilised in one locality. There's been significant success there from November. So we're seeing an increase in sort of security raids, an increase in arrests and seizures of, for example, of narcotics or weapons. However, the issue then is with the concentration of police resources within Malmo, it's left other areas of Sweden open to potential exploitation by criminal gangs. One trend in 2019 that we did witness from a violent crime perspective as well is the phenomenon of actual shootings and bombings spreading out from the main cities and heading to more provincial areas. So, for example, in Skåne, we're seeing Helsingborg, Kristianstad, Landskrona, all having significant incidents of shootings or other violent crimes such as explosions. We've even seen government buildings potentially being targeted as well in these incidents. What we've seen in Stockholm as well is, again, a high level of shootings, and that's migrated to other cities nearby, such as Uppsala, Västerås. So it's a trend that we see continuing until police can really put enough resource into tackling that crime. And one side effect of the police concentration on violent crime is that it's allowed more routine crimes such as muggings or thefts or burglaries increase. So, for example, Gothenburg, where you've got a very proactive police chief, Eric Nord, who's really kind of pushed against violent crime and made significant headway in sort of reducing shootings within the city. We've seen, because of his limited police resource, which is being directed at that, we've actually seen an increase then subsequently in kind of low-level muggings and thefts. One of the great features of our platform is that we can track all these individual shootings and explosions at a granular level in all these cities and all these provincial areas, which really gives us a really clear indicator and picture of the neighbourhoods which are affected. So, for example, when I look at Malmo, I look at historically it was areas such as Rosengård that were affected by violent explosions. Now we're seeing that trend move to maybe the northern suburbs, such as Centrum. So within Malmo itself. So it's really useful from that perspective. Same with Stockholm. We can see concentrations of shootings in Tensta, in Rinkeby, for example, and that allows us really to track trends and patterns of those incidents. One of the areas as well that we're kind of witnessing a continuing trend is on arson attacks on vehicles within Sweden. One of the great features of the platform is I can use my hashtagging filters and advanced filtration system to really differentiate between the arson attacks within Sweden. So whether they be aimed at schools, apartment buildings, or vehicles. So we've tracked, I think, over 460 significant arson attacks against vehicles nationwide. It's important to state that many of those involve multiple cars that are being burnt. So not just one, but 4 or 5, or even dozens where we've had cases of underground car parks being set alight. And this is a trend that we do expect to see to continue throughout 2020. Again, our filtration system and our really granular level of reporting down to street level allows us to track where those incidents have occurred. And if you're from the logistics or you're from the retail sector, that might be really important, especially from an insurance perspective, of where you may want to locate your vehicles or park them up for the night, for example. One other area, again, we're seeing is an increase in diesel theft, for example, of logistics vehicles. And that, again, is an area that we can look at specifically within the platform and locate and find out where those concentrations are, which really gives us that insight into sort of looking at risk analysis and trying to then use that risk to be able to mitigate any kind of threats to our industry. Another area that we've been monitoring is armed robberies, and we've seen again a continuing trend of armed robberies against supermarkets, grocery stores, hotels, and fuel stations, and this has been nationwide again, and we've seen this level of violent crime spread out from the major sort of city centres and urban competitions. So this is a really kind of important area of focus, as again, this has a real impact on industry and on business. So our filtration system allows us to even look between fuel stations, look at commercial buildings. One of the trends I've witnessed in 2019 is an increasing targeting of construction sites, for example. So we're seeing criminal groups going into construction sites and stealing tools. And again, this just shows with police priorities being on violent crime and that kind of thing, we're seeing criminal groups exploit the weaknesses. So this is illustrative of the need, I think, for private security to help supplement police forces within those areas. And we're seeing more and more companies now resorting to man guarding of, say, construction sites or retail centres to sort of aid that as well. So looking forward in 2020, the trends that I've kind of seen for 2019, such as violent crime, an increase in armed robberies and thefts, I believe that we'll see this continuing. We may see limited success with violent crime within Malmo in those environs, and potentially that may spread then as well that police operation may spread to other areas such as Stockholm and Uppsala. But until really the police are given more resources and are able to have a higher posture and an increasing footprint in urban areas throughout Sweden, and a more muscular policing strategy, I believe we're going to see a continuation of violent crime in 2020.